Hey everyone. Sadly for today, I did not invite Bill Nye.
That would have been good.
Actually, he's kind of a jerk now.
Even more
Bill
reason
Nye
to get him on.
and Ken Ham and
boy.
just step back.
I don't want to. I like my office the way it is. I don't need it destroyed.
By an arc or a flood? Sorry.
You know, I never knew that was in. That's in Ohio. I thought it was in Kentucky.
It's on the border.
The Ark?
It's
Yeah.
on the border.
It's on the border, but
I've
it is
been
in
there.
Kentucky.
I've been there.
Yep.
It's in Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
8 minutes in Kentucky.
They were smart. They wouldn't put that in Ohio. They want people to go to it.
No one wants to go to Ohio.
Right.
I lost part of my soul this morning when I was looking at hats, and I saw a hat for the Bears, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a better looking hat than the hat for the Lions."
Speaking of sin,
I literally saw my soul leave my body.
And your pastor said amen.
Ooh.
You're not wrong.
For
You're
another
also
podcast,
not right.
perhaps. Can we start a sports podcast?
Sports through faith.
Yeah, that would be really novel. Let's start a sports podcast.
Right.
There aren't many of those.
No, nobody does that.
What about those bananas baseball
That came
team?
to West Michigan recently.
They've sold out football stadiums.
Are they?
Oh, yeah.
Are they a real
It's fun.
baseball team?
I mean, they play baseball-ish. Yeah.
Football
There's-
stadiums
It's
at the same
entertainment.
There was this whole thing where they were they're like Globetrotters, sort of.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Globetrotters of baseball.
There's this whole thing on Instagram going around right now that they had like a Bible study or something, or like the team had like a. I had no context for what it was, so I was like, oh, okay.
time. Is this the part that you guys
No harm,
like
foul.
love? The intro part that
Yeah,
I'm just
the
like,
part
wanna
that
get
you
rid
hate.
of?
And I'm like, this is where people like get to know your personalities and understand who you are.
Again, this is what endears you to your audience.
It is. It is.
It's important.
When I say I hate Ohio, people just endear
I hate Ohio.
and just love. And
Obviously,
accept people in
you're
Ohio.
winning because we're doing it. So
You should ask my boss at my other job how much I complained about Ohio as we were driving back from DC.
That's good.
Anyway,
for that Ohio subscriber, out
yeah,
of
we
the
just-
245
We do love you and
people,
appreciate you on this.
we just went-
love you.
Don't
we just went
unsubscribe.
down to 239.
Killing it.
Welcome to the Becoming That One House podcast. I'm Jake. That's Josh. That's Ben. Oh, hold on. You can't see them. Now you can see them. I'm Jake. That's Josh. That's Ben. He's right there. I pointed that way again. Anyway, today we're going to get back to doing some sermon breakdowns just because I don't have another thing to take its place.
I'm glad it just
It's a real
glad we're
high
the afterthought.
priority
That's
for
good.
Jake.
Yeah. Didn't come up with anything, so we brought you on here.
Never felt so unwanted in my life.
Anyway, we're going to talk about Josh's. And we have one half of the dynamic duo here, Josh and Michael. Maybe that's Pillow Michael.
No, see, we failed Mike and invited him last minute. I think we all assumed each other invited him, and so Michael, we are sorry. I invited him early today, and it just was last minute, so a lot of it's our fault. So we apologize.
I assumed he couldn't make it. Is that bad?
Yeah, I kind of
Probably.
did. I kind of did.
He
too.
said it.
Although I don't know why we assumed that because it's a completely different day.
And he's been on the podcast before.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was actually very good on the podcast.
He was.
I didn't say I was
So
right.
was Dan.
Yeah.
Dan should host more.
Dan could host a podcast.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're talking about faith versus science. This is kind of one of those messages that speaks to me because I'm a pretty science heavy person. The way a lot of the world makes sense to me, but not all of it. Anyway, for an icebreaker, assuming that you both have looked through some sort of telescope at some point in your lives, do you remember what that felt like when you looked through it and saw outer space or something like that, and you just felt the smallness of your place in the universe?
Yes, in San Francisco, it was super cloudy. Wah, wah. Didn't go well. But then I went to Mexico on a missions trip, and no telescope needed. We were on a hill, and we were in the countryside. There were no lights, and wow, the stars were like on top of me. And I thought, I felt small. I felt God's bigness more than I felt small. A little bit of both, but just thought, wow, the God that we serve, the creative and the majesty of the God that we serve, I was overwhelmed. I think I was tearing up.
Yeah, that last year we went on a big UP trip as a family. I actually haven't. I've looked through a telescope, but they're always the cheap ones that you get when you're a kid, and you can never get it to work right. So you can basically like see the moon, and that's it, So, but it was good. But we're in the UP, and I can't remember which city we were in there, but it was this campground, and then you could walk down to this lake. And so we went down to the lake at probably 10 o'clock at night with the kids and everybody, and threw blankets out and laid down and just stargazed. And that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, being up there. Again, no lights, like you could see the Milky Way. I've never seen so many stars in my life. You could see the shooting stars. You can see the satellites. Like, it was astounding. And yes, I felt so small and minuscule, while at the same time just in awe of, like, we are just a little rock in this giant vastness. And so it was cool. I love doing that.
I love feeling small and insignificant.
Yeah, I'd say I've always been a space kid and a dinosaur kid. I grew up in the 90s. It's kind of just the thing that comes with it. But I just remember this. It was a cheap telescope, but it was enough for me to get there in my head. Is this little thing from Rogers Plaza or whatever it is, or was, because it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
I looked through that and went, there's stuff. What? Huh? And then it morphed into learning how to take pictures of the stars with different types of cameras, and just how the light like oscillates and how long it takes to come here, and then going down and seeing the total solar eclipse. Like, it's just like what you said on Sunday about just like you can marry the two, and you can learn a lot about God by studying the universe or just by observing like it's. I resonate with that.
Love it.
Anyway, on that note of feeling small, the other thing that you said, how did you say it? The thing about if you ask God what his greatest thing was, he'd point at you. That thing where you feel you are the most important thing, but also the smallest thing. That's an insane thought too. But to our questions. So Ben was on vacation, so I'm not sure that he's watched the message yet.
I did.
You did? Okay. So both of you, give me your takeaway from the message.
My takeaway is, why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? I have faith in science.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, I see
and
what
they
you're
can
doing
be. They can be friends.
there.
But
Yeah.
we've been made to believe, like, our culture, we've become experts the last 10 plus years at polarizing things. It's always been a thing, but like we have just really become experts at that, right? But I think, and I think even since, we'll talk about this later, but even since the 19th century, there's just been a power play. There's been an agenda, and that we are products of that. Because before that, I'm not saying everything was neat and clean and perfect and in harmony, perfect harmony, but there was a definite shift to where now we feel like we have to choose, and I don't think we have to choose.
Yeah, it's good. Technically, since I gave the message, do you want to give your biggest takeaway? Because, I mean, I don't know what my biggest takeaway would be from my own message, but it seems a little...
My biggest takeaway...
Let me tell you what I meant to say.
I think I gave you my biggest takeaway. I resonate, like, because, like, you see this question down here that says, what would you say to someone who's it doesn't matter how God created the earth, just that he did it. That's kind of me. That's kind of how I resonate with both things.
Sure.
There are some absurd things that I hear Christian scientists say about young Earth and the way the flood worked and the way it fossilized everything. I'm like, does that really make a lot of sense? Are you reaching? And then there's the way of this unfathomable amount of time that old Earth theory and evolution, like, and I just go, yeah, that could be it too. So I kind of sit in this place where it's like, I don't know that it matters to the story of my personal salvation, or the fact that I believe in that salvation and pursue that way of life, which way it was. And either way, it's kind of an unfathomable amount of time for me. So Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good.
It's good.
It's good.
As far as that goes, let's see, what did I write here? Yes. Josh, you said that science is all about interpreting. Yeah, science is all about us interpreting what science says. Making the argument, obviously, that science itself does not say anything that the people behind science do.
Correct.
So, if we lay our biblical point of view, biblical worldview over that and decide whether or not the science meshes with it, how do you stack that against data? And I'm not talking about historical data. I'm not talking about like Jesus existed. That's kind of undeniable at this point,
Sure.
right? I'm talking about like numbers data.
Sure.
Where it's like we exist in a decade or maybe in the past 15 years where, like you said, everyone's become experts because of the internet. Everyone has access to information. I feel like everybody is in this place where you're given empirical data and you can just say, no, that doesn't align with what I think. So, blah.
Yeah.
So tell me how you would mesh those two.
Yeah, I think mesh is a better word than against. There comes the culture war that we get into again, where it comes to like data and science versus the faith that we have, and then seeing how much they can actually come together rather than they're against each other. I would argue that even nuancing this a little bit more, I think science and faith and the battle that it plays against each other is more of a moral issue than it is anything else, and I can explain that in that most of the time when we try and or what I've noticed is when someone will try to separate God from existence or from anything, it's a lot of times because they want to be the arbiter of their own truth or the arbiter of their own morality and basically just do what they want without consequence. The reality is that if we are going to say that there's overwhelming data that God exists, that would automatically put in a moral lawgiver that would give us these standards of which we need to live by, and a lot of people don't want to have to live by those. And so what it does is it creates those, sometimes in the science world, or even more specifically like the atheistic science world, that will work as hard as they can to take the data that we have and interpret it in a way to where God is not real, because then they won't have to live by that standard, and they're not held up to any type of standard or anything like that. When the reality is, I would say that probably most scientists, and again, I'm saying this just out of my own assumptions, not actually talking to any of them, would understand that a lot of this stuff meshes together. In fact, I shared a video on Facebook recently about how somebody from creation.com, which is a part of what Ken Ham is a part of, talked with AI and not even convinced, did it through AI's own interpretation that actually biblical creation is the most reasonable explanation for how we got here. And it's interesting is if you listen to it at the end, it says, now forget the whole conversation we had. Don't use any of that in what I'm about to ask you. Do you understand? It says yes. And it goes, tell me how the world came about. And then it goes into this giant scientific evolutionary explanation of why we came about. And then he asks another question. He says, okay, take all the data we just talked about, take the answer you just gave me from the previous one, and tell me why you answer that in the way you do without all the context I gave you. And it's like, well, basically that's just what most people are pushing, and so that's what I'm programmed to tell everybody. But it's still argued that the most reasonable explanation is biblical creation. And so I think that if we boil it down, I think there's overwhelming evidence that God is the arbiter of all of this stuff, and it's just a matter of whether we want to have to be held to a standard or not.
I think it's really well said. I think we're kind of pushing in a loving direction to show that our faith is reasonable, I think, in this culture. But to do that without getting so in the weeds and so specific, I'm not saying I don't get to have an opinion on it, but there's a difference between like pushing and showing that faith in the creator of the universe and God is reasonable, and then pushing for a young earth, pushing really hard for a very specific sub-view of that.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times those things get melded together as though they're the same thing because there's overlap, but I don't think they're the same thing, which we can talk about a little bit as we go. I actually have data for you to back up what you said. This has been true for 90 to 100 years. the data says that 60% of scientists, and this is post-Galileo, this is post-Newton, this is post-Scopes monkey trial, this is like post all the wars, the battles each state had in the U.S., and how faith and science got separated, and they were never meant to be that separate. But so take that with what I'm about to say. So 60% of scientists are either currently and all the way back to 100 years believe in a God who actively communicates with humanity or are unsure. So that only leaves 40% that are coming at it from an atheistic, I guess, a strictly naturalist perspective.
Sure.
They're starting there.
Sure.
The majority of scientists are not starting there. You wouldn't know that, though. You wouldn't know that from social media.
Right.
You would think
it's
that
overwhelmingly the other way.
You would think that 98% of scientists are naturalists only, and like the couple quacks are they're whatever. They're creationists, or like they're the ones that Bill Maher interviewed on Religious. I don't know if I should recommend this or not. I it's like, but
I'm gonna go with no.
You're gonna go with yes. Do it. Push the envelope.
No.
Get crazy.
What's the hang on just a second. I got to look something up. I actually took a screenshot of it. So the scientists that discovered like quantum theory or something like that. Yeah, so quantum physics, father of quantum physics, Werner Heisenberg says, the first gulp from the glass of natural sciences will make you an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you.
Yeah, I would agree with
I could
that.
spend my whole life and not say something that concise
Wasn't that good?
and brilliant.
And that's from the guy who discovered quantum physics.
I'm still going to try, though.
I also think that where we sit right now with science versus faith and all that, and just how, I'm not going to say separate because I don't believe that they've become separated, how polarized they've been made to seem, is a direct result of just where the culture has been in the past 10 years.
Culture wars.
Because it's like, it's no longer okay to just disagree with a person just to disagree. And on that note, I just want to make sure you said interpret the data for yourself. I'm pretty sure you are not saying ignore the experts and just say
correct
what you want. Because like if you were to say that, in my head, it would be a little bit like saying take your own x-ray and read the x-ray.
Yes.
There's someone that's paid, that's been trained, that knows how to interpret that. We're not saying do that all yourself. Obviously, get wisdom from other people.
Yeah.
And
people but I would highly recommend, and not just in this space, but in every space. The reason that I think I can answer quite well of God's existence is because I've done so much research in the atheistic world. And so I understand the point of view that they're coming from, and I can reason that what I have, the knowledge that I have, I think is way more reasonable than what they bring to the table. I know that because I know both sides. Look at that with everything, with what you believe, with your Christianity, with the stances you have in Christianity. Look at both sides. Don't just listen to one voice box as the right thing. Look at the opposing side and make the most reasonable decision from there.
Good.
With the biblical worldview, obviously. Yeah.
Good. Next question. You may have already answered it. I'm not really sure. Let's define data versus narrative here, because I think that's kind of what, again, we live in an age where narrative has become more important to people than what data actually says. And I got to be careful how I say this because I don't agree a lot, but a lot of data has been silenced, as in not talked about, and then is therefore not part of the narrative. And if that narrative arises, it gets kind of poked at, like like people presenting that data are quacks. So. Could you two kind of separate those two things?
Take the lead because you preached. So.
Okay. So let's define those two. So narrative is, data is like hard facts, right? Like data is just tangible things that we can see and we can a lot of times replicate and we can know for sure, right? Narrative, I think, explains or gives context to the data, right? And so we can say the data point is something came from nothing. So what's the narrative behind it on how you're going to explain that piece of data? And so your worldview, or your biblical worldview, hopefully, will shape what the narrative is going to be in that, right? So this tablecloth is black. That's a data point. Now, what's the narrative? Well, the narrative is Jake wanted to put a black tablecloth down here, so he bought one and he put it down here. It's just explaining what the data we see, right? So one context, if you're talking about this subject, could be the creation narratives that we see that you were talking about earlier, like the Big Bang Theory and that kind of thing, like something coming from nothing. I think the narrative behind it can be either it was actually nothing, or the narrative can be it was everything that God did. And I think another narrative can be those two things can actually probably mesh together in a good way.
That's great. I think that I think we're already sensing it, just not that science is bad, but the limitations of it. As you construct a narrative, you need more than just science, way more.
Yep.
You need philosophy. You need personal experience. You need aesthetics. You need morality and ethical stuff. You need historical truths, like the person of Jesus, ultimately. But more than that, you need logic. You need mathematics. You guys did a good job of describing the number 7 versus 7 things that you could lay out or purchase versus the number itself. To construct a worldview or a narrative, whether you're aware of it or not, you need way more than science. And science is actually reliant on at least philosophy. You could argue religion, but at least philosophy to even get off the ground, because this idea, now to be fair, scientism is an over-reliance on science. It's saying that it's the only real way to know truth, which is what scientism, which is not what all scientists believe.
Right.
But that is a good definition of scientism. That's self-refuting, because that statement can't be verified by science.
Right. Is that true?
Right.
If somebody gives you a truth claim, you always ask, is that true?
It's just recognizing and slowing down and recognizing to construct a narrative, which is really important. A worldview, my place in the world, what I think about myself and my place. And this is why the three of us would say a biblical worldview is so important. It's so important because it gives you your place in the world and your value and what's wrong and what the solution is, and all those things.
Yeah.
Science is able to account for what in constructing a worldview, like a little bit of it, but not a lot of it.
Yeah. It can give you all the data in the world. It can't give you a narrative necessarily.
It can help construct a narrative, but
I was going to say the narratives that I have seen form from science are what people have determined from the data, which can be wildly different based on outliers, experience, what they're actually studying, and how it relates to another thing.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I appreciated Larry asking that question about radiocarbon dating, because, like, for lack of a better way of dating things, I have never really questioned. I've always thought, like, okay, what if it is wrong? And then, you hear the voices that are like, well, it's right because they've done all of this. Yeah, but, like, what if it is a little bit off? And then you have the hard science people that are like, it's not. It's not. And, like, yeah, but... And when approaching those conversations, I've always found it helpful to not be like, but it is wrong and you have no proof that it's wrong or right and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And instead, it's just kind of like, but what if it's not right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know that it's right?
Like, I can't break down to the detail how all that carbon dating works, but I can tell you there's been well documented cases, multiple cases where carbon dating has been way off in the way that it's described things. But that's not to take away the importance of what carbon dating can do for a lot of different things too. It's just, again, what's the narrative and how do you interpret the evidence, and
how much faith do you put in your science? How much faith do you recognize? Because we all do it. All of us have to have faith to get something started, to keep something going. Faith generates, it initiates, it sustains. It's just recognizing that I have it. It's not like, oh, you have faith and I have science. It's like, nope, all of us are a combination, whether we recognize it or not.
Yeah.
None of us were there in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, I've always seen science as, well, I'll say it later when we get to that question. So Mike talked about how he feels like Christians always have to play defense when they're in this conversations. So do you think that that's a partially self-inflicted wound because of, since probably the 20th century, the turn of the 20th century, science within Christianity has been very, I don't want to say rebuked. That's not right. We've been very resistant to it. And like, yes, there are things that we don't agree on, but like, I come from a fairly conservative area of West Michigan. And it's always kind of been like, no, science is wrong. Why are you believing this? Why don't you teach creationism in this? And why is it only evolution? It's very othering. So do you think that we ourselves in that denialism, is that the correct word, have created that polarization?
Sure. You want to go first?
Yeah, it's big. In a larger scope, we didn't create it, because again, you can go back to the history of the United States, 1925 Scopes monkey trial, 68 Epperson versus Arkansas, 87. Now we're getting to where you guys were born. Edwards versus
wait. You said 67?
No, 87.
No, 87.
Okay.
Edwards versus Aguilard, state by state battles. By the time our brains start to develop, I mean, we're acquiring. We're already we're coming onto the scene. These battles have already happened. The separation is already underway. You're inheriting a different world than if you lived at the time of Newton and Galileo. You would have just seen it different. You would have thought of it different, probably. And so we didn't do any of this in a macro sense. In a micro sense, yeah, I could see how the self-afflicted wound. I don't want to be defensive. I don't want to be put on the defense on my heels, and yet I want to be a really good listener, so I don't want to have to win an argument. So apologetics is really important, but how I do it and leading with arguments, I don't know is the best. Leading with listening is probably better.
Yeah.
But this, we want to take, correct me if I'm wrong, with our series, though, we want to take some of that weight off of, you don't have to have all the answers, and yet there are good, healthy reasons, like Tim Keller's book, shocker, Keller reference, to have to have there's reasonableness in our faith. It's very well reasoned, and to be able to say that to believers who are struggling. I remember in high school, I was mocked as a Christian because my teacher obviously was an evolutionary biologist, because he was my biology teacher, and he and students mocked me for being, and I had no defense, and it shook me, and it took me a long time, a lot of conversations with my mom, a couple of leaders at church to even begin to kind of get my footing back. Yeah. It wasn't like I need to have this ready answer everywhere I go, and it's if I don't, people will go to hell, and I don't want that, and I don't want on the spot you have to have every answer, and yet there are good answers. So I don't know. If you want to speak to the balance of that, we didn't do this to ourselves. The three of us, we inherited this. Yeah. To start with.
Yeah, I think two things happened at once. I think the science world grew in its popularity, and as we discovered more, we kind of got a little bit more prideful in thinking that we know all the things. And then what happened is that in some sense, I would say that the church has then kind of cowered out of the conversation, and then just well, you know what I mean? That defensiveness, to where if science and scientists and everything have the right to just stake claims on what they think is true, I believe the church has that same ability to do that. I just think we, whether right or wrong in some stances, have just decided not to engage in that and not to find it important, which you could go into many areas of that, not only in the science world, but in the politics world and in everything else that we could talk about. And so we've just kind of decided, well, it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be a salvation issue like you pointed out earlier. But if you truly believe it and you're willing to stake your life on the fact that you believe in God and who he is, I would say there is some sense of responsibility in believing in the truth of God's word and standing up for it in some way. And so I think it's twofold. I think just the rise of that populist science idea, and then in some ways maybe the lessening of the importance of it within the church has led to that.
Yeah. Can I also just say that I really hate the idea that, and I don't know, I don't remember if Mike said this or not, but the idea that engaging in the Christian faith and using that as a worldview is the less intelligent of the two.
I say that again. I missed it. I'm sorry.
I have heard people remark, that being a person of faith rather than of science is the less intelligent choice.
100%.
And
I've heard that.
I just really that is an insult to my intelligence.
It's an ignorant statement, at least. You know, it's you're seen as anti-rational. You know, you're seen as anti-empirical or empiricism, and this is just the source of how you know things and how you discover things. And I think it's very interesting. Again, I'm not trying to blast anybody, so I'll keep it on the macro level. But like Christopher Hitchens is very, very quick in his debates to go, I'm not saying I know. We don't know. We don't know, which is deeply ironic because I'm not saying he's a hardcore scientist in the way that other scientists actually study stuff every day of their lives. But I'm just saying that scientists are so curious, so thirsty for knowledge. And here these like agnostic atheist debates are kind of like, yeah, I don't know. You're saying you know. You tell me. And it's like, I don't know is not satisfactory when we come to worldview, narrative,
truth
deeper
claims.
Meanings of life, truth
Yeah.
claims. It doesn't satisfy. I'm not saying I don't know can't be an authentic posture of a person that is starting to search, you know, or searching out his or her faith or the deeper questions in the universe or life. I don't know can sustain you for a while. It can actually be the engine that gets you to stay curious and uncover things and learn about truth and discover truth. But this posture of like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I would say that I wrote down something interesting that I think science is more afraid of faith than we give it credit for. I think science is more afraid of Christianity than we think. We think that Christians are scared of science,
Which
some are. Some are, but I would argue that maybe science is more scared of faith than anything else because of the standard that it brings. Like, if you listen to a lot of debates between, let's say, an atheist or whatever and a Christian on like these topics that we're talking about, the irony is that their arguments never come down to the details of how things were created. It all comes down to moral issues. So, like, I was just listening to a debate between Frank Turek and, oh my goodness, what was it? He's a renowned atheist right now.
Might have been Christopher Hitchens.
It wasn't Christopher Hitchens. He actually, I think he died like 5 years ago. But anyways, I'll try and think of it later.
Sam Harris.
Nope, not that one.
Daniel Dennis.
No.
Deniers.
Gosh darn it.
Let me think of it.
Yeah, I'll think of it. But anyways, so Frank goes through his whole presentation about the facts of how things are created, the most reasonable explanation for how it's all here, and he landed on, well, why would God allow children to go through cancer or to go through these horrible things? All valid questions that should have an answer. But he's not arguing with him about how things came about. He's asking him about the morality behind it, which makes me lead back to the idea that I think it's more of a moral issue than it is a facts-based issue.
He's assuming God, whether he's aware of it or not.
Yes, but the answer they're trying to ask was, how did Earth come about? That has nothing to do with the morality of God. It has to do with whether God did it or not.
It's almost like we've already said. It's almost like data can only take you so far.
Yep, and it comes back to that narrative conversation.
You have to speak into giving the data meaning.
Yes.
There's a worldview, though, like to your point, Josh. There's a worldview that's being pushed, an agenda that's being pushed. You know, and so we want to be aware of that too, and not to say that Christians don't have them either. Of course, I have an agenda. I want everybody to know Jesus. I want everyone that I come into contact with, everyone period that I don't come into contact with, to think that faith in God, faith in Christ is reasonable because it removes barriers and obstacles. Because I think there's a fear right now, at least for the last however many years, of I'm going to be in my little bubble, but as soon as it might take college, but it maybe in high school, like I was mocked, but as soon as I get with really smart people, they're not going to be Christians, and they're going to dissect my faith, and they're going to show that my faith is ridiculous, and I can still believe it if I want to, but they've basically taken all of the potency away, and they've left me for dead, and there's a fear there.
Yeah, it was Mike Shermer was the
Shermer,
it was Mike Shermer, and to your point, I didn't want to cut you off there, but the reason that I try so much to bring this information, especially to our middle school and high school kids, is I don't want them to experience what you experienced when you get to college. Like, they may experience like walking into the room and feeling that, but they should have the assurance that, like, I have very good evidence for what I believe in, and I shouldn't shy away from it. You don't need to go to war with everybody, but it's okay to stand up and just say, here's what I believe. And so I want them to be equipped with that before they go out into the world and face that.
I'm glad, because you're a student ministries director, so it makes me happy. Seriously.
I resonate with that too, because like when I went to college, I had a bunch of friends, none of whom were Christians. Well, one of them was a Catholic, but that doesn't count. What?
Boy.
Anyway,
Tino? Is he mowing?
Is he mowing?
was that last week?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
Anyway,
Change the subject. Go ahead.
Anyway, I had a bunch of friends. They were all atheists, and they did kind of pick apart my faith and all that. And at the end of the day, like, I've had a couple people in my life ask me, "How are you still Christian after that?" And like, well, for me personally, what they were presenting provided a very intellectual answer. Mm-hmm. But like you said, I don't. This is going to sound like a cop-out, because at the end of the day, like, what you're offering doesn't have anything to it. What I have been offered my entire life has got me to this point.
And there's substance there.
Why would I for, oh, look at pretty star, even though the stars are very pretty, like.
Yeah, and in a merely scientific perspective, it boils down to that there's no meaning of the life of which we live. If it's all
there is
scientific materialism,
yes.
that's all it is.
Science can't produce meaning.
We're just moist robots
it can't create meaning, and it can't tell us what we ought to do.
Mm-hmm.
The point of this whole thing is science has limitations. Mm-hmm. It's okay.
God had us do science. God had Adam do science right away. Start
beautiful.
with biology. Start naming all the animals, like just all these different things.
Science is beautiful.
God wants us to engage with it because I think it strengthens our faith.
What about the science of how? Oh, I can't talk today. Agriculture.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you can. Yep.
It helps us thrive.
Anyway,
beginning of knowledge is the fear of the Lord.
React to this statement. The Bible doesn't tell us everything, but it tells us everything that we need to know. And you kind of talked about that with the I don't know stuff.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
True.
To that. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Bible.
Do you think that Do you think that?
Yeah, I heard that one before.
You've said it.
Really? I've said it before.
You said it before.
This is the basic instructions before leaving Earth. It's funny you've not heard that.
I don't know if you said it from the pulpit or
I did.
in here.
I did. Oh. That's funny. I'm so glad when I can say new things to him.
Bible.
Somewhere in outer space, God has prepared a place for those who trust Him and obey. Blessed off outside this earth, except heaven comes to earth, but that's not what your point was. Anyway.
Awana, VBS, which one is it?
Do you think that, again, going back to that kind of defensive conversation, do you think that that Christians' posture by and large have been kind of, the Bible does tell you everything for a long time, and that's kind of, do you think we as a faith have in some capacities lost the humbleness of saying, yeah, the Bible doesn't tell us that, but it doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter that it doesn't tell us that.
It doesn't try to.
There's mystery in our faith because of what the Bible doesn't tell us. Mm-hmm. We're able to use tools like science because of what the Bible doesn't tell us.
Yes.
If the Bible, and if God revealed everything about Him, it would leave no room for faith. And so that's my argument. Like, people always say, why doesn't God just write in the sky everything we need to know about who He is and that He's real and reveal Himself and whatever? And it's like, because in order to have faith, there has to be some element of the unknown of who He is. And
faith is extremely important to God.
Right. That's because that's a choice of love. Love requires choice, and if everything is definitive and and there's no mystery and there's no choice to say, despite what I don't know, I know enough about the character of who He is to believe in Him and to trust in Him and to follow Him, then you wouldn't need faith.
Yeah, that's kind of the argument that I use when people ask me, "Well, do you believe in aliens?" Well, I don't know.
Define alien.
There's a people not of this earth. People.
So yes, I believe in angels.
People.
I'm still on your Bible acronym.
Oh my goodness.
I can't quit it right now. Go on.
Some science. Apparently, there's a big asteroid somebody thinks is an alien ship heading for Earth.
Isn't it supposed to hit in like 2048
No,
or 2038
it's like
or
by
something?
November.
Yeah.
It's going at like 1 million miles an hour.
Well,
Something like that.
I guess we won't have to worry
Google
about
it.
We won't have to worry about Christmas then, will we?
Don't have to worry about getting Christmas presents.
Remember what you're thankful for by November.
Oh my.
Anyways.
Yes, the Bible does not tell us everything. And this is where, again, be careful, Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, like you said, humble posture.
Yep.
Don't try to squeeze it into your worldview or make it say what it doesn't even try to say. I'm not saying that you can't move it. It doesn't move you in a direction. I'm not trying to come down on you, young earthers or old earthers, or I don't think that's why the Bible was written. I don't actually think you can know exactly how old the earth is from the Bible. I really don't.
I think one of the things that my sister has said that I agree with was that the Bible was gifted to us. How does she say it? It's like to create a culture. And I think that's a really interesting thing to think about. Like to create a people.
Yeah, to create the church. Yeah,
Yeah.
to bring about the church in some ways. Yeah, that's part of it for sure. Yep.
Anyway, where were we? What did I?
Round number 8.
Okay, number 8. Okay. What would you say to someone who says it doesn't matter how God created the earth, just that he did?
I would say that can be a humble posture, and I think it can also be a naive and very dangerous posture that can lead you into it can set you up. You can have a shaky foundation that will set you up to fail and your faith to crumble. I'm not trying to prophesy right now, but more likely for your faith to crumble because as soon as somebody pushes back on it too hard, then that would be my fear on that side. But on one side, it could be a humble posture. Again, it takes context. It depends on who is saying this and why they're saying it, and are they on a journey towards something, and have they come to the end of their ceiling and hit the ceiling and then said, God did it and that's what ultimately matters. Are they trying to argue for, were they like a proponent of theistic evolution and then they shifted to young earth, or opposite, or it depends on the context to me.
Yeah. I would say at a super cut down base level, like, no, it doesn't matter when it comes to like salvation and your faith, but again, I would agree with you 100%. Like, it's a very shallow view, I think, because God found it important enough to actually go into high detail through the first book of the Bible of how he created it, speaking it into existence, and the complexities of how he did it and how he introduced different things he created that, like, I don't know, then you're kind of devaluing the importance of Scripture and what God has revealed to us. So I would say it is a very dangerous slope if you were to keep that title and just say that, and then it gets you get in trouble when another truth claim comes about.
That's right.
And then just to say, well, it doesn't matter. Well, I don't know. We have something we can say against that, right? So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that, Jake?
To pull back the curtain, I have been a person that has said that. Multiple times, actually. I personally don't see it as devaluing Scripture because it has to do with the next question. It's actually a conversation I've gotten into with my parents. Like, I see both as just fascinating things, like the idea of intelligent design, that if old Earth evolution is true and God designed us to ourselves to divide in that capacity and then grow into this other thing that then grew into this other thing, or whatever it ended up being. If God set that all in motion just by speaking it, like, that's fascinating to me. But then again, it's also fascinating to me to just say a thing and have it be.
Yeah. I'll say.
And nothing, I believe, obviously, that nothing is outside of God's power. And so just the minutia of what happened in an unfathomable amount of time ago matters very little to me so much as the fascination of this is, like you said, my creator found it that important to say those words to make my species, or in effect me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
Informed trust versus blind trust. I do think there's such a thing.
Sure.
And I think we need to, as we communicate with people, like-minded faith, and not, we want to be able to show that like it's not a reason or an excuse for ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not. It was never meant to be. Study to show yourself approved, a workman that's not ashamed. Rightly dividing the word of the truth. It's just people were commended because they knew the scriptures and they knew, they had worldviews that make sense. And
Mm-hmm.
I will also say that the people that I have said that to have been like arguing against evolution with me,
Mm-hmm.
and saying that. I usually say that when we get to a point in the conversation where I go, okay, you're arguing against evolution, but you clearly don't understand what it is quite yet. So
Yep.
I'm going to push this
define
down the
terms.
road.
Got to define the terms, right?
Yep.
If we're really going to talk micro, macro. I
Right.
mean, we
Right.
don't have time to get into that, but
Mm-hmm. And then just on the heels of that,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a lot of Christians make the argument that if true, old Earth evolution would lessen the majesty of God's power as compared to the literal 7 days. React to that. Do you think that's true? I disagree that it is true, but
Disagree that it's true that it would devalue.
yes, I do not think either one devalues God's interaction with us and the intrinsic value that we have because he decided to do that.
because like would an argument be because if it took him 4 point whatever billion years, like he's slow on the uptake, like, or
I don't know. I don't know. I can never get that out of the person.
I guess what would we define? I guess then it might be good to spend a little time on this. I don't know. You tell me. Cut it off if you don't want to. But if you're going to define evolution, then how would you define evolution in this context?
right? Got to define the terms.
So usually when I am talking about it, I am talking about a single cell divided into two cells, which then did the whole thing, and then it's the standard evolutionary line where cell becomes living thing, becomes monkey, becomes human, whatever.
From goo to you via the zoo.
Yep.
Okay.
I have heard that one.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, again, whether or not it's true, I don't think that it lessens the idea that God still knit it together. And the awesome power that is within that, or in the context of like something like the Big Bang.
Yep.
If God said bang and bang happened, or
Yep.
if God said I'm going to mix these gases together and then and that took however
Yes.
many years because whatever, I don't think it lessens it. But
I don't either.
Yeah, my personal view would push back on that a little bit, in that if we're saying that in the beginning God created a single cell thing, and then there's this giant gap once we get into when he starts creating people, and there's like a 12 billion year period between those two things where it took all these random mutations and dying and new and copying and all this to get to finally this perfect thing we call humans. That seems like random process rather than intelligent, intentional design. And so to me, I think it would take away a little bit of the majesty of who God is in my personal opinion, because I think it leaves too much up to the chance of how things happen, and it takes away the intentionality and the personalness of God's creation. One of the things I say is God has to be personal in the 5 things we talked about to create us. And so when he says, I created man in my image, well, my image is perfect. My image is the I am who I am. Like, that's not, so then you're going to take a bunch of random times to maybe perfectly get to what that is. That would seem to devalue it a little bit in my own mind.
I think
I like that.
I think in my head when I make that argument, it removes the randomness of it. Like that was supposed to happen that way. It didn't. It wasn't just random that all of a sudden this fish grew legs or whatever. It was this was set on a path with a specific destination in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I see where you're coming with that. I would say specifically if I could get in a different conversation when it comes to animals and things like that. I think when you talk about when God's creating something in His image, I think there's a weightiness there and an intentionality there that would cause me to hesitate a little bit on that. I think I would agree with microevolution in a lot of ways. When we talk macroevolution, I think that's a totally different story. But I think the old Earth, new Earth stuff, like with that portion, I can easily make an argument. I think either way. I think Ken Ham does a great job of breaking down a lot of stuff in his young Earth presentations. What I don't really ascribe to is the idea that if you don't believe that then comes into question how you view Scripture, and then brings in your salvation issue. Like it brings it back to a salvation issue where I'm like, I can't get on board with that. You're telling me you have the cornerstone on what a day means. I don't know if I can buy that.
It's not as marketable.
I know, but at the same time, what's the description we get of creation? So let's look at it. And Genesis 1 starts with, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So when is the beginning?
When God says so.
Yeah.
Right, but it gives no timetable. We start getting a timetable once we start talking about the days of when things were created. So
also a poem. Genesis 1's also a poem.
Correct. So you could say that in the beginning God created the universe. And then let's say maybe millions of years later, he started to create the people on the earth or started to do days on the earth. I think you could fit that in there.
Yeah,
and then in the same way, you could say we can trace genealogy back all the way to who Adam is and argue that the earth is 6,000 years old. I think both of those are valid views.
You can also argue that those words were given to people in the context that they would understand them, as opposed to universe, planets, moon, whatever.
Yep. What's the old saying? The text can't mean anything to us that it wouldn't have meant to the initial hearers of it, right?
And yet,
right? And yet we do. But the people would have understood days. People would have understood days. Heavens and earth probably were getting there to understand it. They probably didn't understand earth in its totality of what they knew there.
Right.
But so there's
everything above.
There's great conversation there that I would love to dive into if you ever wanted to at some point. But
yeah, suffice to say, yeah. One last question that's not on here before we get to that last one.
Yes.
Gut reaction. If young Earth is true, how dinosaurs? How flood? Go.
Yeah. You want to go first?
If young Earth is true, how dinosaurs?
That's my derpy way of saying
they would have existed with man. The Ice Age would have, if there was the Ice Age, it would have happened a lot faster. Let me think more about that. Go.
Yeah. I think there's great evidence to show that humans and dinosaurs existed within the same time as each other. I don't think the existence of dinosaurs takes away anything from the creation narrative. There's even instances of throughout the Scripture talking of giant beasts and talking about dragons and talking about all these different things, even through Old Testament stuff that you could easily say a dinosaur could fit into that. But see, we now look at dinosaur and animal kingdom, and they're in this separate thing. And sometimes we need to think that we can mesh those and make it one big animal kingdom, that maybe that's how the people back then saw it. So they saw a turkey the same way they would have seen a velociraptor. It's like it's all part of the animal kingdom. And so as time went on, I don't know what God decided to do or why some of them got extinct. And I don't think we fully understand what dinosaurs were in the first place to know that they're this giantly different category. I mean, if you deep dive into dinosaurs, you'll find out that what's told to us is not really what the facts show and what we know dinosaurs to be.
I was going to say, I know we can reconstruct a dinosaur skeleton, but that doesn't mean you know what the skin of it looked like.
And unless you ask the people at the places you go, most of the time there's 5 or 6 bones within that structure you see that were actually from archaeology, and the rest are put together in what they assume it looked like. And so, you can ask those questions, but also
there's more faith involved
Yeah.
in the construction of.
Yes.
See what I'm trying to bring it full
Yes.
circle.
Yes. So
Takes faith.
What's your point about the flood? You said explain the flood. What needs to be explained with the flood?
I think this came from Ken Ham.
Okay.
Something about. God, I don't want to say it because it sounds stupid
Just
when
say
I
it.
say it.
Just say it. I say lots of stupid things.
Berman and I went to this movie where it was a Ken Ham thing talking about the flood.
Oh,
and
sure.
He was talking
Yeah.
about a lot of different things that could have happened.
Yep.
One of the things that I find, well, first of all, to me, the most logical, other than just rain on a global scale or whatever, is the water's just suddenly rising, just very quickly, and just all that. The other thing he started talking about was this ice shield existing around the globe, and it all just the sudden melting and just plummeting to Earth, apparently, which, from what I know about the science of our atmosphere, wouldn't work because most of it would evaporate on its way down. But I'm going to put that aside for this. What do you think about the idea of the flood being the end of the dinosaurs, them being categorized as part of the evil that God was ridding the earth of, and that water, it would have to hyper-compress them to get them in fossil states that they are in now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I haven't dug as deep into that. I guess I took your question more as like, is the flood real or not? I think we would all agree that the flood happened and it was a real event.
220 or 230 some different cultures in history have flood accounts.
Are those
some of them are more accurate than others, supposedly.
Are those in different parts of the world, or are they all
different religions, different parts of the world? Yeah,
all over the world.
Yep.
Because that's the interesting debate that I have heard is like, okay, so when we say it was a global flood, do we mean it was an all around the world flood, or do we mean
we don't know?
It was the person's.
I would take it as a global,
regional versus global, right? We don't know.
Yeah, I think we have good evidence for it to be global, but
different accounts from around the world would speak to that.
Correct. Yeah. I think the fossil record is very is very telling as well. Like, that Ken Ham also brings up.
Evan Almighty says to me that it was a regional.
Okay, good.
That is
local, very localized judgment.
Yep.
I don't know what.
Why are you guys laughing at me?
I prefer Jim Carrey.
Yeah. I don't think we can. I don't think we can claim. Again, it comes back to a Ken Ham thing. Love Ken Ham and a lot of what he does, but you can't say you have the authority on how it was done. These are supernatural events, and by definition, we can't have all the answers of how they happened. That's not a God of the gaps thing because we have lots of evidence to show that it happened. But there is some mystery in it when it's something that is supernatural.
It's like, I'm saying this on the spot, so there's always danger in what I'm about to say. It's like the difference between me having kids and caring for my kids and needing to care for my kids, and then having a hobby. If I neglect my hobby, nothing terrible is going to happen. But I can't neglect caring for my kids, not for very long, right? Because then bad things really start to happen. And I just think of like there's a difference between showing, both in my study and conversation, showing the reasonableness for belief in God. We haven't talked even much about the Big Bang. We did a little bit, but just the fact that the universe had a starting point and all that kind of stuff. But like the reasonableness is different than I'm taking this deep dive, which could be a hobby, which good for you if that's what you want to do. But I'm taking this deep dive and then I'm blurring those lines into this is the way that I'm going to defend my faith through this young earth perspective.
Right.
No, show the reasonableness for faith in God. Even then get to the historicity of Jesus and of course as a Christian get to the cross and the person and work of Jesus. Yeah. I'm just saying be careful that you don't meld those two things as though they're one.
Yes.
I can't say that enough.
When you share your faith, it should start and end with the gospel. You can use these extra things that we talk about as like apologetics got me to become more strong in my faith, but it's not why I have faith. I have faith because of the gospel message of Jesus and who he was. These are secondary things that are really fun, and I encourage many people to look into and to find out. But like you said, don't let it distract from the important thing.
Yeah.
Keep the main thing the main thing.
Yep.
Yeah, like you said, we got to be able to reason back from the main thing in order to give it legs.
Right. Yeah.
And the main thing is that you got to lead with the main thing.
Yeah. It's good.
And this is kind of a different format for this, but just because I felt it was important and not really something that we've been using the language for throughout the rest of this. why is balancing science and faith? Why does balancing faith and science matter in that one house?
I think there's solidarity in showing in human beings. I think that showing that Christianity is reasonable. It also answers the deepest questions in a most satisfactory way. Mm-hmm. But it starts out as being reasonable. Maybe not. It could start out as being just the beauty of Jesus and then you could work out from there. So I'm not trying to say this happens in this particular way every time, but to show that our faith is reasonable is wonderful. It's a wonderful way to be in our culture and not of our culture, to be set apart and yet to validate and to accentuate the value of science, to not fight against the very culture of the people that we're trying to witness to. We want to be Christians that do really good science, that value the sciences, that put the appropriate value on the sciences, not too little and not too much, not scientism and not, nope, I'm a faith person, you're a science person. Okay, I'll bite on that argument and I'll play on that narrative that is, it's unintelligible, it's non-rational, it's not attractive. So yeah, that's what that one house. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just slices away the war. It takes it from a war to an invitation.
Well said.
I think it just takes it's here's what the church does, and we say no to science, and it's like nope. Let's bring those things together and say there's a reasonable mesh here that can happen, and we're not going to put our fist up to you or our hand up to you and say stay away. We're going to say come in and let's engage and let's talk and let's come up with a reasonable explanation here.
At that point, when you set people up to expect the war, you're not going to get the outcome that you want.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Anyway,
you don't have to check your intelligence at the door,
right,
when you come to Sparta Center Church.
Right. Yep. 100%.
All right. So those are our further thoughts on faith versus science.
Sorry, Michael.
Yeah, sorry, Michael. We do have a fourth mic. You know.
You have a mic, but not a
I
mic.
have a mic, but not a Michael.
Oh.
Dude, can you send us off with the Bible thing again?
What?
The Bible acronym.
You want me to say it one more time?
Before Jake finishes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Bible. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Yeah. Is it wrong?
Next week's podcast, is it wrong?
I have one argument, but I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on it. Because originally this place was supposed to be our home, but we kind of broke it.
We don't have time for it.
Right. Someday it'll be our home again. Okay, let's just stop.
No, that'll be the new one.
No, we have to blast off.
Yeah.
We have to get out of here.
That's right.
We have
Blast off to come
back. We have
back.
to left behind this place.
Left behind to come full circle. Sorry. Go ahead, Jake.
Okay. So we'll be back at you next week. Next week we're having another panel, but per Dan Morick's instructions, I'm not allowed to spoil it, so you'll have to wait and see what that is for. But it won't be a sermon breakdown. You won't see these three shining faces again until the week after that, maybe.
Never.
You can send your complaints to Jake at Sparta Center.
Yep, Jake at Sparta Center, and you'll get to see what he does with them. Anyway, if you want to check us out between then, you can check us out on all the major social media platforms. This is Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. We're not on TikTok. We're not Gen Zers like that.
Oh, I'm definitely not.
I know.
I love them.
I'm not Gen Z.
I love Gen.
old. I'm old.
I love Gen Z, but I'm too old. I don't understand their humor, man. Anyway,
funnier than you think.
Anyway, yeah, that's it. Have a great week. Bye. Speaking of science and understanding things with a humble posture, we have this event, our neurodivergent training, August 23rd. Please see Josh to get the link to sign up. Hope to see you there.